In just a moment, the press preview, our look at what's on the front pages. But first, let's run you through our top stories here on Sky News this evening. New figures have revealed the NHS in England is performing at its worst ever level against targets for accident and emergency, cancer and weights on trolleys. A US appeals court has upheld the suspension on Donald Trump's controversial travel ban, which has caused nationwide protests. The Archbishop of Canterbury has criticised the government for closing its child refugee scheme, with just over a tenth of the planned number brought to the UK. And a very good evening. You're watching Sky News and, of course, the press preview. In the next half an hour, we'll be taking a look at what's making the headlines with the Observer's chief leader writer, Sonia Sodha, and the political journalist, Isabel Oakeshott. With you in a second, let's take you through the front pages, starting with the Metro. And unsurprisingly, it leads with the story that's been our main focus all day. NHS hospital waiting times now the worst that they've ever been. And on a related topic, the NHS reports that NHS funding is growing at the slowest rate, since the NHS began. The Express says that 200 illegal migrants every day are, as they put it, sneaking into the UK. Council tax rises of up to 5% are on the cards in most parts of the country, that according to the Telegraph. And that means, according to the Mail, that any increases will outstrip inflation, more money for the councils. The Eye has more on yet another emergency Labour reshuffle after the Shadow Business Secretary, Clive Lewis, was forced to quit in order to vote in defiance of Jeremy Corbyn on the latest Brexit bill. On the other side of the political divide, The Guardian says that there's a threat of rebellion by Tory MPs after it emerged only a fraction of the promised number of child refugees were actually allowed into Britain. The FT reports on the worsening Greek debt crisis, fears growing over another much-needed bailout. Taxpayers' money and charity donations are funding advertisements on so-called fake news websites. That's according to an investigation in The Times. And The Star claims to have further details about the final days of the socialite Tara Palmer-Tomkinson, and so too does The Sun. We're joined once again by Sonia Sodha and Isabel Oakeshott to take us through tomorrow's papers. And shall we start with the front page of The Guardian? And this is an interesting one, actually. A rebellion growing on Theresa May rolling back on the promised 3,000 migrants that we were supposed to, migrants/child refugees that we were supposed to be receiving here.
Yeah, I think this was a shameful move by the Prime Minister and the government, actually, and it's incredibly difficult for them to defend. They've got their own backbenchers, really resisting it. And actually, I mean, it's quite shocking when you look at the numbers. So what this was, it was a scheme that actually was passed in the Commons, but, there was some signs that the government was quite reluctant on this. There had to be a lot of pressure from Labour MPs, from Conservative backbenchers, but a scheme to allow 3,000 unaccompanied child refugees into the UK. Now, that's not very many. In fact, I think we should be doing a lot more for
unaccompanied. So what's the rationale on the part of the government for
you search me.
Yeah, well, I think it's very simple, actually, and the problem goes back to the issue that we had when some of these so-called child refugees came in.
So-called
and
child
Sonia,
refugees.
they actually were not children, and that is at the heart of the matter. Now,
but
I actually agree with you. I want to bring more needy cases in, particularly from Syria, and particularly
the government doesn't.
If they're properly small children. But if they're actually 22, then they
Isabel,
don't really meet the criteria
there's no evidence
of children.
Of that. The way that some papers built up evidence of that was...
But just to be clear, the government isn't suggesting we need to improve our standards. We need to look more carefully at these individuals and make sure they're children. They're putting a stop to the scheme entirely, and that doesn't sound like they're reacting to criticism.
Doesn't that rather remind you of the very controversial Trump ban that everybody's getting into such a lather about?
That was how we handle things here.
Interesting segue, of course. No, bring us up to date. We've heard from the appeal court, and Donald Trump is not going to be a very happy man, is he?
No, he's not, because the court has ruled that they're not going to temporarily lift the court's ban. Wait, I've got that the wrong way round. But basically... The
suspension continues.
The suspension continues, exactly. Thank you for helping me out there. So it looks like this may go all the way up to the Supreme Court.
We're all just waiting for the Donald's tweet, aren't we, to see what he says
Well,
about the so-called judge that has overruled him again.
And indeed, just on that point, we have had the tweet, and I'm going... It reads,
tip-top.
see you in court. The security of our nation is at stake. Donald Trump not holding back there. I mean, the criticism that's come from the Archbishop of Canterbury, do we think, you know, it's perhaps slightly wide of the mark that we are now on the same page as Donald Trump?
Actually,
Totally.
Of course it's wide of the mark, and I was being slightly kind of flippant when I said that. But I just wonder, you know, whether all the outrage over Donald Trump's travel ban should make us reflect on our own policy of who we allow in and who we don't. And Sonia, you know, for you to persistently claim that there wasn't an issue over the criteria here, and people who were quite patently not children
but the evidence
taking
that
advantage
came
of the
from
scheme
was pictures that some
that showed
media
very
outlets
wrinkly
ran through, like
adults.
Microsoft age-checking software that isn't accurate.
But then they were just pictures. That is
But
not
look, we
fake news. They
only
were
let in
actual
350 children. It's shocking.
But they
It's
weren't
really
children, Sonia. They
disgraceful
were
that the
not
government.
children.
You
They weren't
don't-
children.
You don't know about the numbers, Isabel, and that should.
I do know that they
one
weren't
thing that the Prime
children.
Minister said was that she was worried that that actually this scheme was going to act as a pull for refugees coming from countries like Syria, and I just think that that's you know, you can't just. That these refugees are fleeing war.
Yeah, but
they're
by the
not
time-
stopping to think
Sonia,
about what schemes there are
Sonia,
for
there
Europe.
are quite a few countries between where they fled from and when they get to the border with Britain. Right?
I do
you
want
not
to move
think
us on.
Britain should be
Sorry,
doing
guys. I
its
do want to
bit?
move us on to our next story, because actually immigration does play into it a little bit, and it's the right-hand column there. Some suggest that part of the reason that there is such pressure on the NHS at the moment is because of our expanding population,
Don't
and
even
in
think-
some small part of some people taking
Don't
advantage
even
unfairly
think
of the health
about
system.
suggesting that to Sonia, because look, she's just getting all geared up.
But the numbers
the button,
numbers
and off
do
she
not
goes.
show that. So, you know, the government's response to all these stories about the NHS being in crisis, again, it was shameful. It said, right, well, we're going to go after foreigners who use the NHS. Now, there's nothing wrong with charging people who aren't eligible.
No,
it
You've
was.
just completely
It
made
was
that
their response.
up.
They put out all these stories in the press
They
this week,
did not
Isabel.
put out those stories. It was a BBC documentary.
No, implying that the reason why the NHS is in such financial
Well,
difficulty
it
is
one
because of people
factor.
who aren't
It is
eligible.
one
Now, that is
factor.
rubbish. It's nothing to do with migration. It's nothing to do with foreigners using the NHS. That's a tiny slice of the NHS budget.
Sonia.
The reason why costs are going up is because we've got an ageing population and because of the increasing costs of medical technology. If we want the same standard of care, we've got to put a bit more money into the NHS than we are at the
I
moment.
feel
Isabel,
I
can we
just
though
feel
agree that there are
exhausted
clearly
just listening to
issues
Sonia.
with the NHS at the moment, with the quality of care that it is providing?
Absolutely. No doubt about that whatsoever.
Isabel thinks we should privatise it. That's your answer,
I
isn't it?
love it when you lefties start talking about the privatisation of the NHS. You know what? We could talk all night about that. I don't think we should. What I think is that it is ludicrous to suggest that the rising population and the huge numbers that have come in recent years,
Isabel,
entirely legitimately, has no effect.
Isabel, all
on
the
NHS. Of
research
course
on
it does.
immigrants shows that they pay
They
a lot
never,
more
ever
into
use
the
the
system.
Are you saying they never
than
use the NHS?
No, of course I'm not
Well,
saying
then
that.
there you go. There you
I'm
go.
saying they
Population
they
rise
pay more
equals
taxes
more
than they take
pressure.
out in public
But
services.
that hasn't gone
all
into
the
the
research on
NHS.
immigration shows that. Yes, because the government aren't choosing to spend on
Can
the
we move on?
NHS.
Can we move on? Honestly, she's blasting my ear off.
Well, I want to move us on to a topic
I
related
think it's
to
just 'cause
Donald
you know I'm
Trump,
right.
shall we?
I
And
definitely know
John Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons, 150, perhaps as many as 150, I doubt that figure, but, perhaps as many as 150 MPs supporting a motion to oust him because he doesn't like the Donald very much.
Well, it's not because he doesn't like the Donald, it's because he chooses to inflict that opinion on all of us, and that is not his role. And there is a real anger about this amongst Conservative MPs, and a lot of people may not remember the rather dull background to how John Bercow came to get his job in the first place, but it is actually a fact that he was never very popular amongst the Conservative MPs. He very much got his job as Speaker on the back of support from the Labour Party. So it's no great surprise to find the rebellion here is led by Tory MPs. And Tory MPs are quite understandably very fed up that he should have effectively massively undone all the good work.
So why
Theresa May
shouldn't the
did.
chap who is the gatekeeper ultimately to the House of Commons, who controls who speaks in Westminster Hall, why shouldn't he have an opinion on who speaks there?
Well, there is a convention, and I happen to think it's an important one, actually. I agree with the substance of what Bercow said, but I don't think it should have been him saying it. There is a convention that the Speaker of the House of Commons is neutral, and that's really important because he's the arbiter at the end of the day. He's the one one who's kind of, controlling the debate, calling on MPs to speak. And Bercow himself has argued, well, this didn't really compromise his neutrality because he's speaking on foreign affairs. But actually, even though I fundamentally disagree with the government and the stance that they've taken on Donald Trump and, the cozying up that's been going on, it's not the job of the Speaker, I think, to make a statement that so directly challenges government policy. I would have preferred that to come from the government itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to kind of have a quick look at this, though. I mean, the fact of the matter is, John Bercow, as Speaker of the House of Commons, could he sit in the Speaker's chair if there were a motion of some substance, if there were policy of some substance relating to the Trump presidency?
I don't really quite understand the premise of that question. I mean,
Well, no, after he's just said he doesn't want Donald Trump to come and speak, could he be the person who controls a debate about, for example, if Donald Trump were to commit an act which the House of Commons felt that it must censure, could he sit in the Speaker's chair for that?
That is a really good point, and if that helps get rid of him, then let's bring on that motion, let's have that debate which puts his position into question.
I mean, there are some speakers where even if there was a motion of no confidence that, a handful of MPs are backing, I think would have seriously thought about their job. But John Bercow isn't really that sort of speaker. He kind of courts a controversy. He's only got a year left in the job, and maybe he's sort of thinking about his next role.
Well, I just want to remind viewers of that tweet that we had from from the US President Donald Trump. If we bring it up just now, you'll be able to see, all in capitals as you would expect from the President. See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake. We'll have more on that, I'm sure, throughout the evening here on Sky News. But coming up after the break, the Tories' threat to abolish the upper house as pro-EU peers make a last-ditch effort to thwart Brexit. That will be according to The Sun. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to the press preview with Isabel and Sonia, and let's go to page 2 of The Sun, shall we? And there's a little bit of sabre rattling going on. Don't block Brexit, the Lords are being told, otherwise you might find yourself abolished.
Well, this has been brewing for a long time. I mean, we all know that the case for Lords reform has been dragging on for years and years and years without ever absolutely getting anywhere. And now there is this feeling that it might all come to a head over the Brexit legislation. Having gone through the Commons, is there a possibility that the Lords are going to exercise their ability to block the legislation?
Not block, amend.
Ping it back and
distinction.
Ping it back and forth for so long that it all becomes
because
impossible.
they'd like to ensure that Parliament gets proper scrutiny of the Brexit deal, which the Commons, quite shamefully, I think, absolutely and totally failed to do.
You are veering off at a tangent here.
But isn't it interesting, though, that the sides have switched? Because normally it's always been the Conservatives who've been in favour of an unelected House of Lords, and the Labour Party has been pretty pro-reform. But actually, sides have switched this time. So Labour are talking about reasserting themselves in the Lords.
The person that's calling for this debate, Oliver Letwin, was a Remainer, wasn't he? I mean,
well, he was very much part of David Cameron's operation, and I'm sure he was a Remainer. But anyway, is the Lords going to be abolished? In a word, no. Lots of people have tried it, ain't going to happen.
Well, on that basis, then, shall we move on to the next story, Sonia? Immediately underneath, in fact, the Apple boss, pro-Brexit, by the looks of things.
Yeah, so he went into Number 10 for a meeting, and it's being reported that he said he's very optimistic about the UK. Think about this story.
Here we go. Are you about to say this is fake news or something?
No, I wasn't going to
gloss over
Are you going to let me get my bit in or not, Isabel?
Oh, you have no problem with that.
I think that he was hardly going to go in. He's looking for a sweetheart deal. We know that Apple's really great at avoiding tax. He's not going to go in and say, actually, I think the country is completely screwed because of Brexit. He's looking to suck
quite
up.
A few of the companies have done.
He's looking to suck up to the Prime Minister in a cosy one-to-one meeting and brief that when he gets out. So that's what I think is going on here.
It's pure speculation from
Alternatively, he might just actually be kind of pro-Brexit.
Right,
we don't know. We don't know.
Sonya's just being sour grapesy here, because for once there's actually a really positive story, and you can't.
Do you think this is really positive?
Well, I'm sure if a few free iPads end up kind of dotted around Whitehall, I'm sure they'll think it was. Let's go to page 7 of The Sun. And I have to admit, I've seen this from a few outlets actually over the course of the day. And it's pretty ridiculous. Take us through what we're seeing here. A student at Cambridge being actually, I don't want to speak because I'll say the wrong one.
Yeah, well, it's a horrible story. Apparently, a Cambridge University student sort of came out late at night after a party and burnt a £20 note in front of a rough sleeper. So really, really horrible story. I think Isabel and I are going to agree on that one. The other thing that I think is a bit strange about this story, though, and the way it's reported, is they put a picture of Nicola Sturgeon in the story and put Sturgeon nephew, in inverted commas, burns £20 note. And then sort of, you know, in the third paragraph, it says, the law student who brags he is the nephew of Scotland's First Minister, even though he is not. I'm not quite sure about why there's a picture of Nicola Sturgeon in there.
They're supposed to be distantly related, aren't they? It says distant relative.
But
there,
why put nephew in the headline anyway? It's not. I don't think it's a very responsible way of
Are
reporting
you in any way surprised that we're still seeing behaviour like this in the 21st century?
No, I'm not surprised at all. Look, Sonia, honestly, I'm not in any way condoning this idiot's behaviour. It's a ridiculous thing to do, but drunk student does stupid things.
I know, but it's a really nasty, callous thing. We know rough sleeping is on the rise, partly as a result of the government's cuts to services for the homeless and for homeless shelters. I'm sure everyone is seeing more rough sleepers. I certainly am in London.
What we don't know is what the beggar said to the student. I mean, there may be bits of this story that have not been told.
There could be. If we want to get to the last story, we're going to have to move on. However, I should point out that the gentleman in question is believed to be the nephew of the First Minister's sister-in-law's ex-husband, which is a tangential relationship.
Work that one out if you can.
That definitely does not qualify a picture of Nicola Sturgeon in there.
Looking for love? Try a wiggle on the dance floor, Sonia.
I love this
Sonia's
story.
going to demonstrate.
I'm not going to demonstrate, but there has been a scientific experiment on what's the best sort of dancing to attract the opposite sex, and apparently the secret is a very good hip wiggle and then moving your arms in an asymmetric way. But there is a bit of a caveat in this article because
don't go too over the top.
Don't go too over the top, because I was wondering where I was going wrong, because I'm a very enthusiastic dancer. But apparently, if you don't exercise a degree of restraint, the whole effect goes wrong, because if the arms move too wildly, it looks pathological.
It looks pathological. Oh, brilliant. Well, that's basically identified my teenage years there. Thanks very much.
I'm so disappointed that you're not showing us what you mean.
I couldn't.
I wish there was an online version of this show, because that's where we'd put that extra bonus material.
We'll do it later, shall we?
Isabel, Sonia, thank you both very much for joining us in the press preview this evening. Time for the weather.